So I want to start off by introducing myself. I'm Daryl O'Quinn, and want to just kind of give you an update on the Planning and Zoning Committee. So the council, every quadrennium or each time we have a council president pro tem election, the council president is the person who determines the ad hoc committees. So in the Mayor Council Act, there's really only one standing committee, the Committee of the Whole. Public safety, planning and zoning, transportation infrastructure, all of the others are ad hoc committees. So when Councilor Alexander became president, it was her decision to kind of revamp the way we do some of our committees. And so planning and zoning was one of the committees that was changed up. So other committees have a single chairperson. However, in this case, Councilor Vasa and myself are going to be co-chairs. So Planning and Zoning Committee meets every other week, second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. And Councilor Vasa and I are going to switch off each meeting and to lead the meeting. So, having one person presiding, helps keep things efficient. So just wanted to give you that background so you understand what's going on. And also, Planning and Zoning Committee was previously a 3-member committee. It's now a 4-member committee. Obviously, myself and Councilor Vasa and Councilor Woods and Councilor Smith are the official members of the council committee meeting. You'll also occasionally see other councilors attending, these committee meetings. Any of the councilors are free to attend. It's just the committee members who will be, voting on the recommendations. So in any case, we'll get started with the meeting. Our first item of business is to consider the minutes of the Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025 meeting. And I guess I'm the only person present who was probably there, but if there's no additions or corrections to the meeting minutes, we'll consider a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the September 10th minutes.
October 22nd.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Correction. I
Yep.
move to approve the October 22nd minutes.
All right. I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so the minutes are approved. So we'll move on to our zoning cases. And I did want to let members of the audience know that one of the cases on our agenda today, ZAC 2025-00023, this is the request to change from D3 to light industrial or light manufacturing district. That case is being deferred to the January 13th meeting. So if you were here for that case, we will not be hearing that case today. Again, ZAC 2025-23, we won't be discussing that case today. So first case that we will be talking about is ZAC 2025-00016. And so if we could have staff give us a review of that.
Okay, so for the record, I'm Christian Togmas, and I serve as one of the planners here for the city of Birmingham. Now, this item was heard at the last October 8th P&Z meeting, to which I can provide an update since that meeting, or I can go over the whole case, whichever y'all prefer.
Yeah, let's start from the
Run through
beginning.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the applicant is Abdul Amir and the owner is Maflahi Sadiq. So they're seeking to rezone the property from QC2, which is our qualified general commercial district, to C2, which is our general commercial district, in order to remove the Q conditions from a previously approved rezoning case, which is Z4089, in order to allow a motorcycle training facility. Now, the Q conditions from that 1989 rezoning allowed the following uses only: a restaurant, a motel, and a truck stop. Now, the property is approximately 2.75 acres in size and is located at 1700 31st Avenue North and 1701 32nd Avenue North, which is just west of I-65 off the 32nd Avenue North exit. The surrounding zoning is D3 single family and C2 general commercial to the north, and D3 single family to the east, south, and then D3 and QD5, which is our qualified multiple dwelling district to the west. So a little bit about the applicant's proposal. The motorcycle training facility provides a safe, controlled environment for skill development, safety education, and advanced riding techniques. The course will have designated training areas to provide riders with defensive driving, emergency braking, and maneuvers, and low-speed control, all while providing real-world traffic simulation. Their courses are held both in the classroom and outdoors and is available on select weekdays and weekends, led by certified motorcycle trainers. Pro Rider Birmingham has established a scholarship program for students living within the Ossipco-Finley neighborhood. The hours of operations will be Tuesday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and there will be 4 employees, of which they are the instructors. And additionally, the applicant plans to coordinate and host food trucks on site for special events and will be open to the public. So the adopted long-range land use plan identifies this property as general commercial. Now I'm going to go through the staff comments. So from zoning, due to the excess of 9 parking spaces, the applicant must incorporate low impact development or pursue a variance through the zoning board of adjustment. Additionally, if approved, the applicant must pursue a special exception through the zoning board of adjustment for the proposed use in a C2 district. From landscape, a type C landscape buffer is required anywhere that the C2 abuts the D3 single family residential zoning. And there's going to be 1 tree per 40 feet of street frontage on all 4 sides is required. Now, if those landscaping requirements can't be met, a waiver can be applied for, or the applicant can pursue also another variance through the zoning board of adjustment. We received no comments from stormwater. The property is not located within a special flood hazard area, and there were no comments from Birmingham Department of Transportation. Now I'm going to go through the neighborhood recommendation. So the applicant went before the Ossipco-Finley neighborhood on June 4th, and they voted 17 votes to support, 3 votes to not support. The item was heard at the Zoning Advisory Committee on July 15th, and they voted to approve and forward the request to the Planning and Zoning with 5 votes to approve, 0 votes to deny. And since the last Planning and Zoning Committee, like I mentioned, they came before the October 8th meeting, and they voted to send the applicant back to the designated neighborhood association to provide a proper presentation, and that was 3 votes to approve. So since that neighborhood meeting, the Ossipco neighborhood did not meet in November or December. So staff stated that instead of making the applicant wait 3 months until January, that the neighborhood would forward the item with no recommendation. So that's where we're at right now, and that's the conclusion of the report.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that the Planning and Zoning Committee asked the applicant to go back to the neighborhood, and since they weren't meeting, he didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Correct, yeah, or else he
Right.
would have had to wait until January.
Yeah, okay. What's that? Just ask your question, yeah.
Why, do you know why this got sent back to the neighborhood?
I'd probably defer that to the applicant or someone from the neighborhood who was actually at that meeting.
So based on hearing this previously in Planning and Zoning Committee, is my understanding that, you know, there were some issues with the meeting location. It's a SIPCO pipe facility where
correct.
the neighborhood meets, and the neighborhood didn't have permission to use the AV equipment in that facility, so the applicant, you know, had brought his presentation in the form of like a PowerPoint, you know, and he wasn't able to do that. So the committee, you know, after hearing that, wanted to create an opportunity where the applicant, you know, could provide all the materials and visuals and everything to the neighborhood. But obviously that didn't happen. So we're kind of back where we started.
I guess for clarity, this is the same neighborhood that voted to approve it?
Correct, yes. Back on the June 4th.
I think the president's here at the appropriate time if we could get some more context.
Right. So, is the neighborhood officer here? Yeah, can somebody from the neighborhood, you know, provide us some background? Turn on your mic, please. Yeah.
All right, let's start over. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Brown. I'm Chair of North Birmingham Framework Committee. And the issue is when we came in October, there was still some questions asked about the presentation. And he was asked to go back to the neighborhood meeting. Now, in November and December, it's usually the meetings that a SIPCO Finley do not have during the holidays. That's been normal for a few years. The next meeting will be held on January the 7th, which is the first Wednesday in January. And that would be the next meeting that he can go to. But that is something that has been done in previous years there with that neighborhood association. So it was not to hold anything up. I mean, we were told that that was possibly what was thought, but that was not the thought process because this is something that has been done for years. We find during the holiday months, the attendance are very low. So rather than scheduling a meeting, they just wait until January.
So, Ms. Brown, it's been a couple of months since we heard this the first time. And, you know, according to the summary we have before us, the neighborhood did consider this back in June of this year, and there was a vote that occurred with 17 votes to approve and 3 votes to deny. However, I remember when it came to the Planning and Zoning Committee, there was some discussion around that. Can you provide some context?
Yes, the discussion around that, it did have a vote of 17-3. But also the problem was there was some discussion about some of the people who were there at the neighborhood meeting that voted. But at the Planning and Zoning Committee, when we came here, the biggest issue was the fact that you have senior citizens living, when you look at that block, the eastern border is bound by I-65. Your north and your south border is residential homes with senior citizens there. Your western side is right next door to the First Baptist Church of SIPCO Finley. So some of the things that he mentioned in ZAC meeting that came up in the planning and zoning meeting, which was noted by Christian, was when you're talking about putting food trucks there on Saturdays, okay, or whatever days he want to have done. That's a residential area and that's a church there. And they have a lot of services sometime on Saturdays, namely funerals and stuff like that that are there on Saturdays. I know he told Councilor Abbott, motorcycles don't make that much noise, okay? You don't have to be riding fast on a motorcycle. Harleys are designed to be loud. That's their trademark. So even when you crank it up, it's gonna be loud. And when you've got senior citizens there, that is part of the issue there. That they should not be subjected to that because that block of property was supposed to be zoned residential. Because the intention was for the community, when Egan School was torn down, it was to build houses to repopulate the community. But somehow or another, they put it as first they said it was industrial, then they're saying it's commercial. But it was supposed to be residential because that was the plan for it until we started putting the businesses there. The other argument that we had was about removing the queue conditions because you open that property up to too many other things that could come there. Along with this item that's not wanted, you can get other things that are not wanted there. So that was the objection to it.
Okay, yeah, so I don't guess I mean, I know usually these, there's just a sheet that's sent from the neighborhood that records the vote. Does the neighborhood officer also send in like the sign-in sheet from the meeting, with those records?
No, so generally they just send us the voting form.
Okay. All right, so the neighborhood's take, according to you, is that there were some people who showed up who you guys weren't sure were actually neighborhood
Yeah,
residents?
they had an issue with that for a couple of months because you had two votes that were taking place that a lot of people, a lot of younger people wanted, and a lot of people that live close by didn't. So at one meeting, they had to have someone from City Hall to come in to make sure that the residents that voted were actually living in the neighborhood. So there's been some issue with that on several occasions, and we're about ready to get them solved in the community there because it is a problem. But January, they will be back for their first meeting of the year.
Okay. You got a question, Council Woods?
You also as the owner.
Is that, I don't see the applicant. All right, okay, there you are. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. So you guys want to hear from the applicant? I mean, we can, since most of you guys are new to the case, he can talk about what he's intending to do with the property. So, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. It's in here, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
Mr.
good evening,
Amir.
everybody. My name is Abdul Amir.
Yeah. So give us a summary of what you would like to do with the property.
All right. So, starting from the very beginning, I approached Mr. Maflahi about the property. I guess he wasn't sure about the conditions or the queue conditions himself when he said that I would be okay to start my business there. So I started my lease February 1st of last year. It wasn't until I got here to City Hall where I found out that I couldn't get a business license because of the queue conditions. So I've been paying $3,000 a month for that property since February. When I was advised of what I needed to do, I I immediately started reaching out to the ASIPCO president. I was told that they were not interested in my business being in the neighborhood, and I would not be put on the agenda. And it wasn't until I came to City Hall and found Miss Williams, who was over the neighborhood presidents. They had to call her and get me put on, they had to instruct her to put me on the agenda to be heard. I went to the ASIPCO meeting. I had already been to one ASIPCO meeting, the one that they refused to put me on the agenda for. And I waited to the very end when they had a minute, and I asked if I could speak to the neighborhood. And reluctantly, they let me have 2 minutes where I handed out flyers and introduced myself. During that meeting, I watched the Red Cross and another representative from the city who was running for an office utilize the audiovisual equipment and give their spiel for about 10 or 15 minutes. It never crossed my mind that I needed to ask permission to use a ASIPCO property. So when I showed up early, when I was on the agenda, I immediately walked in. I was met by the sergeant at arms. I introduced him myself again. He said that he remembered me. And I told him, I said, well, I'm ready to do my presentation. Can I set up my laptop and hook up right here? He said, absolutely. So I was given permission by the ASIPCO neighborhood's sergeant at arms to hook to the ASIPCO equipment. When it was my turn to give the presentation, I walked to the podium, I moved the cursor on my laptop, and all the screens lit up with the beginning of my presentation. I was immediately told to disconnect my laptop because I didn't have permission. I've already hooked to it. I wasn't gonna do anything other than use the prompter to give the ASIPCO neighborhood the proper presentation that they needed. When I was told to disconnect it, I went through a presentation from memory for the next 10 minutes. And they were very receptive, very receptive. Long after it was my time on the floor, I had people coming up to me, questions. We were exchanging phone numbers, very receptive. They put it to a vote. 17 yeas, and they said, and when everybody was standing up and voting, the sergeant at arms and another gentleman, I don't know if he held an office, but they were literally walking around and saying, you know, no, you're not in the neighborhood. You have a business here, but you don't live here. Please sit down. You don't get to vote. They went through the entire audience to make sure that nobody voted that wasn't supposed to be there. When everybody came in the beginning of the evening and they filled out the roster with the sergeant at arms, nobody was allowed to put an address that wasn't on their driver's license in the meeting. So everybody that voted was from the neighborhood, and I got 17 yays. And they said, any nays? And it was silent. It was absolutely silent. And they said, so nobody's opposed? And they said, well, somebody's got to be opposed. And someone from the audience said, no, just put a 0. And they said, no, we're not sending up a 0. And that's how you got the 3 nays that went against. It was going to be an absolute unanimous from the neighborhood. I came up here, and obviously you guys know how that went. And at the last meeting, they sent me back because I wasn't able to give what they call a proper presentation,
Right.
okay? For those that don't know, Pro Rider Birmingham seeks to conduct advanced motorcycle training that will improve safety and liability on the roadway. That's all it is. If you hear people speaking about Pro Rider in negative context, it is because they're speaking out of from personal opinion, and they have not seen what we do. After I was sent back to the meeting, told that I had to go back to a SIPCO and give them a proper presentation, once again, I paid almost $2,000 for a professional videographer to come out, and he spent 3 hours on my parking lot, and I brought multiple motorcycles out there just so that I would have proper documentation to show the ASIPCO neighborhood that when these motorcycles are operating at a low speed, one motorcycle at a time, it is not loud. It is not a nuisance. And the videographer was doing a lot of what he does from directly across the street at the houses where people are supposed to be, bothered by the engine noise of these loud Harley Davidsons. And when I play the video, you can tell it's not what they expect. It is, you can go to ProRiderBirmingham.com. We've got videos on the website where you have one motorcycle that's doing less than 5 miles an hour, under controlled speed, and you can barely hear the motorcycle. You can barely hear it idle. But everybody thinks that if the Q considerations are changed and ProRider is allowed to open up this business, that all of a sudden some outlaw motorcycle club and hundreds of motorcycles are going to come in and nobody's going to get any rest. I have already told when I was at the ASIPCO neighborhood, their biggest concern was Sundays during church service. And I told them that if they would give ProRider Birmingham a shot, they would never see any motorcycles training on Sunday on that property, period. Not even private parties, nothing. Nothing would happen on that property on Sunday. And the neighborhood was satisfied.
Where's the video on your website?
You should be able to go to the main page. You should be able to go to the main page and scroll all the way to the bottom.
Okay.
We've uploaded PDF files where folks that want to learn how to do these things
Yeah.
at low speed,
Where is it?
they can create the patterns themselves.
Oh, okay, got it.
But we also have videos to show them what it should look like if it's done properly.
Yeah, my question, I was trying to get some clarity on that process, because like I said, we have a system in place for neighborhoods to hear from business owners and then take a vote. And so I just wanted to make sure that vote was proper, which sounds like it was. Do we have anything from community development to indicate that the vote was not proper? Okay.
Okay. So, I'm watching the video, sorry. So this looks pretty similar to the type of training that a mounted patrol officer, might, be required to do. Give me some context. Is that what you guys are doing?
Yes, sir. ProRider is an advanced motorcycle school. So if you've never ridden a motorcycle before and you're just trying to figure it out, this is not for you. They offer the Motorcycle Safety Foundation down in University of Montevallo offers the training for brand new riders. But this is advanced level. This is people that have had thousands of hours in the saddle, but now they want to get better. Instead of pulling into a parking lot and putting your feet down and what we call duck walking around the parking lot with your motorcycle, you keep your feet on the floorboards. The motorcycle is under power all the time, clutch, throttle, braking, everything's very controlled. I have people that reach out to us all the time, and they're like, I've been riding a motorcycle for years, but I want to ride like a motorcycle officer. I want complete complete and total control of my motorcycle, and I want that confidence, and that's what we provide.
Okay. So, Mr. Togmas, the case that's before us today is to lift the queue conditions, is that correct? So
Correct.
I'm looking at this, what are the queue conditions on the property right now?
So it only allows a restaurant, a motel, and a truck stop.
So it's otherwise zoned commercial, so anything that's allowed by right in C2 would be allowed with, with lifting the queue conditions. But I think the proposal today is not to necessarily lift the queue conditions, it's to add a trade school as one
No.
of the allowed uses.
No, so it is to remove all the queue conditions and just leave it as like a base C2 with
So-
no queues on it.
Right, but I saw something in here about a trade school, so is that something that,
So a trade school, that's the closest definition that we have to what he is proposing. So that's the use that we use. So we haven't added that as a queue condition. It's just to remove them all to be allowed to use that use at this site under a C2. Now, he would also have to get a special exception through the zoning board of adjustment if that C2 is eventually approved,
for,
a trade school use.
okay, so the zoning board of adjustment has to make that call.
Correct. So if he's approved, he would have to get a special exception.
Okay. Now I'm really confused. So why are you guys asking us to remove all the queue conditions? If he can just go to the zoning board of adjustments and ask the ZAB to allow him the special exception for a trade school, you know, we have to, since trade school is not in one of the, you know, allowed uses currently, so do we even need to lift the queue conditions? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, because trade school is not one of those three. So he'd have to.
And it's not one of the allowed uses for C2 either.
Correct. For C2, it is. It's permitted with special exception.
Okay,
So you
Gotcha.
have to remove those to have that use allowed, and then get the approval through this special exception.
okay, got it. Okay, other questions for the applicant? Council Woods?
Question for staff, if you go a little deeper into the absolute need to remove all queue conditions before they can request the exception from ZBA?
It's not absolutely necessary. I think that might have been the request of the applicant. Be honest, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think what's before you is to remove the current queues that are on the case. And basically that queue just allows for three uses: restaurant, motel, truck stop. At present, if you want to develop on that site, it has to be one of those three uses. I believe, and I may be wrong about this, maybe the applicant can correct me, that was his request to remove the queues.
Yeah, but I mean, he wouldn't know, the best path forward, I wouldn't think. So basically, he just needs, like Councilor Quinn said, he just needs to go to ZBA. Because nothing we're doing
Well-
here today gets him any closer to,
He's not gonna be able to go to ZBA unless the council finds in his favor to remove the queues or add his use
I'd
as
rather
an
just
allowed
add
use.
his use.
Yeah, I agree.
One of those two things has to happen, otherwise he won't be able to go to ZBA.
What category would his use fall under?
I think we've identified the trade school.
Okay, so we have the ability to just add that use.
Well, the trade school is an allowed use by special exception in C2.
So how do we do that, Tim, since it's not one of the
Well, like I say, I'm not.
uses allowed by right?
How was the application made? Was the application made to just remove the cues?
Yes.
So to me, that would be up to the applicant, to decide. Do you want to pursue removing all the cues and then, attempting to receive your ZBA approval? Or would you amend your application to just ask to amend the cues to add trade school as a permitted use? To me, that's up to the applicant to decide.
Mr.
I wouldn't
Hummer,
wanna
you don't currently
dictate.
own the property. Are you trying to purchase it from the owner?
I am not. I have been guided by everybody
Right.
from the start. And I know that the ASIPCO Finley neighborhood is worried about like removing the queue considerations and all that, and that, I wasn't driving that train
Right,
at all.
okay.
I just want the trade school, that's
We're
it.
gonna get there. So now my question is since Mr. Amr is not the property owner, is a leasee of the property, allowed to
Well,
have a rezoning request?
I'm imagining that he submitted a letter.
Yeah, we do have a permission.
Yeah, he has a letter of permission from the owner.
Okay, so the owner's consenting to the zoning change.
I believe that's true.
Okay, all right.
So, I mean, in my mind, the most expedient path forward is going to be to amend the application and it be resolved here, would not need to go to ZBA, or?
He still, I mean, basically on what you're telling me, he still needs a special exception. It's basically.
Yeah, so whatever way he chooses it, or whichever way it goes, anytime you amend a queue condition, it has to come before ZAC. So whether you're removing or adding, you still have to go through ZAC, and then you go to special exception.
So, but it's already been to ZAC.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the council would have to approve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would go to ZAC, P and Z, city council, just like a normal zoning case.
You guys are confusing us.
Sorry, I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like, this is just like any other zoning case. If somebody wants to amend a queue condition, they go to ZAC, get a recommendation, come to P and Z for a recommendation. Ultimately, the city council is gonna make the final decision.
But what you guys were telling us earlier was that the zoning board of adjustments would have to.
That'll be a
approve-
subsequent action.
Okay,
Currently, trade school is not an allowed use at this site. The only way to allow that to happen is to amend this queue through the council. If the council amends the queue to allow for trade school, then it would be a permitted use, provided he has approval by the zoning board for a special exception.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more comfortable considering that versus just stripping all the queue conditions. So I think, can we, walk him through that process of just making that adjustment? And I think we can probably, I guess we'll get feedback here, but we can probably move that on, but,
so let me just ask this. So trade school is not one of the options listed in the permitted by right?
Correct, it's not permitted by right. It's
So-
permitted as a special exception in C2.
Right, but can the council grant a special exception?
No.
Right, so,
All you're doing is adding, if you would be either removing all queues
we have to address the queue.
or adding that use to the queue list as an allowed use.
Yeah.
But it still would have to subsequently go
what
to.
I'm asking you is what queue condition category would we add at this point? Because,
Yeah, it says permitted by right. Is that what's throwing you off?
no, because you keep telling me it's, yes, yeah, so
Yeah.
permitted by right, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Right, right,
Which
right.
one of those, of the 41 options that are listed, would we need to allow under
Yeah,
the
so if you
queue
flip the
conditions?
page, you see the list there, permitted by right. These are the uses that are not allowed. You flip the page, you see permitted as accessory, permitted with conditions, and then you see permitted by special exception. And number 3 on that list is trade school.
So I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. So, I'm sorry, Tim. Can you?
Yeah, just if you flip the page there, you'll notice that the list that you referenced, where you see permitted by right, those are the 3 uses that are allowed by right. And then you see those that have been queued out, essentially. And then you flip the page, you'll see permitted accessory, permitted with conditions, and then you see permitted by special exception with condition, and number 3 listed as school, trade school.
Okay, so. Right, so we're not granting the special exception.
Correct.
We would just be saying that the council would would allow the use of the property as a trade school, and then it would be up to the ZBA to decide whether or not that special exception was actually going to be granted.
That's correct.
All right, I think we're clear now. Everybody follow that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, I mean, are we good to, does he need to amend that first, or can we go ahead and do this and y'all handle the paperwork?
Well, that's a good question. I think, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that you can make that recommendation today. We can clarify that with OCA and see how we
Yeah.
need to proceed.
So, Mr. Almer, I don't know if you're following this conversation, but your request for rezoning is to essentially drop all of the queue conditions. So currently, the property is what we call queued out, which means that there's only certain uses allowed amongst the 40-plus that would otherwise be allowed. So those uses that are permitted currently are restaurant, motel, or truck stop. And then, there's a whole bunch of other uses that, that are not allowed under the queue conditions. So, some of the ones that if we just drop all of the queue conditions, there's some that, are typical problems for the neighborhood, like clubs and, I don't know, other things, personal care services, whatever. So, I think the recommendation coming from us is that you amend your request to, rather than dropping all of the queue conditions, amend the request to add a queue for trade school. Does that make sense?
Can I, but I guess from my point of view, can we just pull his application and handle that before he leaves? So we're not running him through the ringer again and again?
Yeah, I'm basically asking you, Mr. Almer, for if you understand what's the situation and if you would consent to changing your request.
Absolutely, because it sounds like that's what, it looks like SIPCO neighborhood and ProRider are both getting exactly what they wanted in the first place. Because I know they didn't want all the queue considerations, done away with.
Right.
And I definitely, like, once ProRider has moved on to bigger and better things, I don't want just anybody to be able to come into the neighborhood and do whatever they want. So I asked this in the very beginning, but I was instructed that this is absolutely the way it had to go in order for it to get done. So if all we have to do is amend that, I'm all for it. Absolutely.
Okay. So now my question to staff is, based on what you've just heard, is that sufficient for us to?
Well, that's, I think That's what I had mentioned. I think that it'd be best to consult with OCA, our city attorney office. They're not here. So, you know, I think it would be best to hear from them.
All right. So I'm gonna motion that we table this issue, try and get somebody from OCA down here,
Okay.
to give us their viewpoint. So can I get a second on the table? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, so we're gonna lay that on the table and we're gonna move on to our next, request. Okay, so next case is ZAC 2025-0024.
All right, thank you. So once again, Christian Togmas, and I serve as one of the planners for the city of Birmingham. So this case is located within the Huffman neighborhood. The applicant and the owner are both Roebuck Plaza Baseline LLC, and they're seeking to rezone the property from MUM, which is our mixed-use medium district, to C2, again, which is our general commercial district, in order to allow for a vehicle rental company, enterprise rent-a-car, within an existing tenant space. So this property is approximately 4.97 acres in size and is located at 220 and 226 Gadsden Highway, which is just right near the intersection of Gadsden and Roebuck Parkway. The surrounding properties to the north, south, and the west are zoned MUM, and to the east is zoned D2 Single Family District. So their proposed use is a vehicle rental company, enterprise rent-a-car. The site will include customer service space, a small wash bay or prep area for cleaning and light maintenance, meaning oil checks, refueling, and vacuuming. The estimated number of employees will be 5, and the number of vehicles varies, but we'll approximately have at least 15 to 20 vehicles at any given time. The proposed hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. through 12 p.m., and they are closed on Sundays. The adopted long-range land use plan identifies this property as mixed-use high. So I'm going to go through all the staff comments now. So for zoning, the property must be resurveyed into one lot through the city's subdivision process. There are no comments from Birmingham Department of Transportation, the landscape, or stormwater. The property is not located within a special flood hazard area. The applicant went before the Huffman Neighborhood Association on September 22nd, and they voted to support the rezoning request with 18 votes to support, 0 votes to not support. The item was heard at the Zoning Advisory Committee on the October 21st meeting, and they voted to recommend the item to Planning and Zoning, 4 votes to approve, 0 votes to deny. And that's the end of that case.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Yes, all right. All right, so you heard the summary. Any additional information you'd like to add?
No, to be clear, my name is Jason Klopfelter. My company is a local facility manager. Baseline is my client. I live in Roebuck Springs. The property is across the street, so I'm just here on behalf of Baseline
Okay.
to answer any questions that you guys have.
So, Mr. Togmas, it's currently zoned mixed-use medium. I assume that car rental facility is not allowed under mixed-use rental. That's why we would need to go to C2.
Correct.
Okay. In the packet, you have the C2 uses that would be permitted by right. So that is a list of 41 items. The neighborhood association didn't propose any queue conditions. EAC didn't propose any queue conditions.
No.
Okay. Tell me more about the car washing facility. So, yeah, it's part of the plan, right?
It'll be on the backside of the property between, where that Walgreens just went out of business. I'm just a loading dock out back. I think it's highlighted,
Okay,
has been highlighted on the, something I saw in the packet.
okay. So all of these other businesses are on this parcel, right?
They are, so it's all one, so this lot has multiple, or this parcel has multiple lots on it.
Okay, so is the subject property on an individual parcel?
No,
Okay. And I assume this company is also leasing this space? So, I mean, again, do you have a letter from the property owner consenting to the change?
we do.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Which space are they physically going in? Is it one space or multiple?
One space.
Is it a far end or, in the middle?
So it's more, towards the middle. I think in the image you show, it's got the check depot.
It's the second unit from the corner. So,
Facing Check Depot would be to the right.
yeah,
And I assume that a portion of the parking area located in front of the building would be used for rental car storage as well? Okay,
Over 170 spaces.
right. Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Tate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, you're not doing, it's not a full-fledged car wash, it's just like maybe like a bay area where you guys, when people bring the rentals back, they getting them ready for the next rental, like cleaning them out, getting them ready for the next rental, so like a bay area where they just dry the cars through the bay. Okay. Right. So just basically turning the cars over when they are returned in from a renter. Okay.
Which use does this fall under?
so it's kind of a weird one. It falls under automobile sales. So our automobile sales definition has a section about vehicle rentals in it.
Okay. I feel like this likely needs some queue conditions.
Yeah, and the committee can, add those to our recommendation.
Staff, as I'm looking through the difference in uses between MUM and C2, I only see a handful of differences. To state them out loud would be number 11 hospital, number 18 donation center, number 20 electronics repair, 31 recreation equipment, 34 shopping center, 36 printing and publishing, 37 studio radio TV. Does that look right to y'all? Does that look right to y'all?
Yeah, that's the C2, yeah, that's the allowed uses in
Okay,
C2.
yeah. Those are the only differences between MUM and C2 based on what I'm seeing.
Is that-
Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, just a couple.
Qs, would the permitted as an accessory or permitted with conditions, can those also be, queued as well?
We need, yeah. We need,
Yeah,
yeah, we need to queue them or they don't have to come back to council.
right. Okay,
I think we can queue what we see now, but in between now and, full council, if we need to add something, I think we probably could as well. But I know like out of permitted with conditions, like payday loan, title loan, I wanna queue that out. Yeah, but like I said, could be some additional, in addition to what Councilor Vasa mentioned, so good to have some fresh eyes up here that can pick those out real quick.
Mr. Gambrell,
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that, we would need to know the full queue list and have that recommendation prior to scheduling any public hearing with the council. Once the public hearing's scheduled, you know, we kind of have to live with those queues. If we want to amend those, we have to re-advertise the case, bring it back to council.
right.
Ideally, you know, we would have those queues, you know, today with a recommendation.
I was under the impression that, the city was no longer giving business licenses for payday loans. You know, we had a moratorium on check cashing and payday loan, businesses prior to my arrival on the council. I didn't know if that was made permanent at some point.
I don't know where that stands, to be honest with you. I'd have to seek some other opinions.
Okay.
I know there was an opinion, or a moratorium at one time.
Yeah. I mean, just based on my prior experience, moratorium is not, you know, permanent. And
Right, that's
it-
temporary. We did make some policy changes at that time to the ordinance. I think that did include some distance requirements and things like that,
Okay,
that,
so it's not necessarily that we're not granting business licenses for those uses.
they'd have
that-
to meet the policy and the zoning ordinance, and new locations that may be challenging.
I wonder where we put them.
Well,
In hell, probably.
right,
in
right.
that zoning
Where they belong.
category. Okay,
All right, let's, do y'all wanna, capture these queue conditions? Or you want us to?
do you have some Q conditions you wanna add?
Yeah.
Just start going through the list.
We'll start with, the permitted by right uses under C2. We'll go with number 11, hospital, 18, donation center, 31, recreation equipment sales and services. Permitted as accessory to another principal use, internment, and, won't even try that. And then permitted with conditions, adult care and child care, 1 and 2. Family day, 3, family day night care home. 4, family group day night care home. 27 payday loan, 28 title loan. 32 garden, community garden.
There's more on the next page. Any
36 recycling collection center. 37 adult establishment. That's what Huffman would want. Huffman would want that. And then permitted by special exception with conditions. 1, 2, 6, 7. 11.
Just for clarity, Counselor Woods, these are the uses that you would like to remove?
Correct. Q out. Yep.
Yeah, okay. You guys got all that? Okay.
All right. So I move.
Are you okay with that? You don't need a chicken coop on your, right, I gotcha. All right.
All right. So I move we send this to full council with recommendation to approve with consideration for the listed Q conditions.
All right, I'll second that. Ready for the vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion is approved. So that will be sent to the full council. Thank you. Are we ready to go back to case number 16?
Yes.
Okay, so motion to take up ZAC 2025-16 for consideration.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, okay, so now that's back before us. We are requesting an opinion from OCA regarding whether or not the applicant being present and consenting to a change in the request. His request, as he applied for, was a simple dropping of all of the Q conditions. Based on our discussion here, we recommended to the applicant that he, rather than dropping all of the Q conditions, simply add a Q condition that would allow for trade school use. So our question was, is the applicant being present and consenting to a change in his application, essentially, is that sufficient for us to proceed to a consideration, or does the applicant need to start over again?
You may go ahead. Yeah, we discussed it in the hallway, and, you know, the ZAC recommendation is just a recommendation. You can accept that or not. And so it's just like the case we just previously had. We omitted the Q condition as part of this discussion. And I think it would be similar in this case, that we could amend the Qs similarly.
So rather than considering what the applicant has requested to remove all the Qs, we simply just say, we're not gonna do that. We would add the use as a trade school, right?
That's what I'm indicating.
Is that kosher with OCA?
I have, this was sprung on me, so I have
Understood.
not officially researched, but
We're
again-
only about 20 minutes ahead of you.
yeah. And I can, you know, did y'all delay or what?
Well,
what's the-
we tabled it while we were,
Okay.
waiting to hear back whether or not we could simply
Okay.
proceed as I just described.
Okay, so are you gonna take it up later at this meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, well, I
we're
can-
considering it right now.
Okay. We are reconsidering it right
Yes,
now?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, if I can have a few minutes, because that's what I was doing back there, was pulling up, Westlaw to take a quick look at something. But, I mean, my understanding is that zoning just requires a recommendation from the planning commission, or in our case, it's the zoning advisory committee of the planning commission that makes the recommendation. The council makes the final decision. And, you know, this committee is just reporting out to council, as to what
Right,
your opinion of ZAC's recommendation, and what the, after you hear from the owner and anybody else you want to hear from, what that recommendation to the council is. You know, the council makes the final decision. So, you know, as been mentioned, we've made changes, at this stage to add queue conditions and do anything. The only thing that we know clearly, as Mr. Gambrell stated, is once we advertise for the public hearing for the council, if we make any changes to what was advertised, we have to go back to re-advertise. If it's been, we do know from some litigation we had, if it's been over 2 years since that recommendation from ZAC or the Planning Commission, we would definitely have to go back to the beginning. So, but I don't think in this case that it has to go back to the beginning. It's, you've received the
Right.
recommendation. It's your job to pass on to the council,
right.
you know, a recommendation from this
so-
committee.
So basically, so if we were to vote on it at this point, it would move forward to the council with a recommendation for from the committee for the request. And the request, up to this point, has been to remove all the queue conditions.
Right.
So, you know, based on the previous conversation, our, you know, with the path that we're going down is, rather than removing all of the queue conditions, we would simply add a queue that allows for the use of the property as a trade school.
Right.
So, but, you know, so I guess my preference is that rather than it moving forward to the council as a request to remove all of the queue conditions with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Committee to not allow removal of all of the queue conditions, but simply add the use as a trade school. That seems a lot more confusing than simply saying we're going to change the request to add the queue condition for use as a trade school.
Yeah.
Either way, I think we can proceed. I'm just asking, can the request move forward with being changed, or does that cause a problem in our code? When would ZAC then need to reconsider it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think necessarily that ZAC would have to reconsider it, but part of the question gets to be, do you advertise what he requests? Or do you advertise what the committee recommends? And that's where the question comes about. Like you
Right.
said, it can be messy, but I would like to consider it a minute.
Okay,
So now that I know what the question is
you got
fully.
60 seconds.
Okay, let me set my timer.
Yeah, all right, so, okay, so we're gonna give you a few minutes because we got some other agenda items. So again, motion to table ZAC dash 2025-16. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that item's tabled. So next up, we have, item number 4, framework plan rezoning cases. Our first, case here is ZAC 2025-11, the north side, south side framework plan rezoning. Okay. Yep.
Hi, I'm Jess Mays, and I serve as a senior planner in the Department of Planning, Engineering, and Permits. I am the senior planner for the North Side, South Side area. We first brought the North Side, South Side Framework rezoning plan to P&Z on October 8th, and the committee voted to recommend approval of the North Side, South Side plan based on the following 2 conditions. So we were asked to change the zoning for several properties around Idlewild Circle. And I have photos of them in this document for y'all. But those first 4 properties on Idlewild have been changed to D3 single family. We previously had them as D5 multifamily. And then on that second page, the next 6 properties have also been changed to D3 single family from D5 multifamily. And then the second condition was that planning staff is going to work on an amendment to the D5 multifamily zoning district to only allow it to be 35 feet. So our team is currently working on that. And then in addition to those changes that P&Z asked for, if you go to the third page, we have 4 changes that we found as we were going through the map. 667 Idlewild Circle was included in the P&Z request, but it's a small multiplex, so it would need to remain D5 or it'll become legal nonconforming. And then 3020 12th Avenue North, we had proposed it to go to mixed-use medium, but it is a convenience store and it was rezoned in 2021 to QC2. We no longer allow convenience stores in mixed-use medium, so if we were to leave it as mixed-use medium, it would also be legal nonconforming. And then across the street from 3020 12th Avenue North in Norwood, 3100 12th Avenue North, and 3009 12th Avenue North are also convenience stores. So since we are making that change for the first one, we also changed those 2 to C2, so they're not legal nonconforming. And then we'll flip again. We've also gone through the Q conditions for North Side, South Side. We are keeping the Q conditions that are currently on properties, but as we've been investigating, there are some Q conditions that we feel comfortable recommending removal of. That first one is for 1324 32nd Street North. That was QR4. It had been rezoned and a Q condition placed on it for a child care facility. But when we looked into it, there's been no ZCO for a child care facility in over 25 years. So we would like to recommend it go back to D3 single family zoning because that's what is all around it. The second one is 2118 19th Terrace North. That was rezoned to QR5. But when we looked into it, it's currently a vacant lot. So we would like to recommend that it just change to urban neighborhood with no Qs. Then 1501 27th Street North was rezoned to QO and I. But we also looked into it. It's also vacant. So we would like to just recommend that it be changed to urban neighborhood. 1925 15th Avenue South, 1941 16th Avenue South, 1934 16th Avenue South, 1942 16th Avenue South, and 1600 Richard Arrington Boulevard were rezoned back in the late 80s to QB2. Whoever has bought the property since then has actually demoed all of that. It was a medical office. So we are recommending removal of those key conditions and those properties just be changed to mixed-use medium.
Are all of those properties adjoining properties?
For that last one, no,
Yeah.
they're not. Several of them are adjoining and they're right off Richard Arrington, but then one is like in between an office building, and then I think another one is like separated by a parking lot.
Okay. You don't have a map of these, do you?
I do not. I just have, little screenshots.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Keep going.
That was it for North Side, South Side.
Okay. So remind me, the committee, the north side, south side framework rezoning plans came before the committee previously,
On
correct?
October 8th.
Right, and I can't remember, did we vote on a recommendation at that time?
I was in Europe at that time, but based on
Lucky
the notes that I saw, P and Z recommended those two conditions, recommended approval with those two conditions. And those were changing of the Idlewild Circle properties and that we are committing to changing the height in the D5 multifamily
Right.
district to 35 feet.
Okay, so, yeah, I remember the discussion around the Idlewild Circle, I believe that's District 3. And so I guess it's the other changes that are kind of throwing me off, so these.
Yes, and those are new changes.
Right,
Like Julie was saying with the queue conditions, once we advertise this for council, it has to be advertised exactly how it is. And so that's why we wanted to recommend removal of these queue conditions so that we can advertise it without them.
okay. So it's being brought before us again today because there's all of these changes that are being proposed, so we need to vote again.
Yes.
Yep, gotcha. Everybody clear on where we are? All right. Yeah, I mean, based on the public feedback that we received, it was really the Idlewild Circle properties that were causing some heartburn in the community, and it looks like that's been addressed.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah, just to second that, it looks like the movement from the Idlewild Circle properties from D5 to D3 would be welcomed in the community, so thank you, Jess.
all right. You got a motion to go with that comment? Okay. Second, all right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. So we've dealt with that. Next, case is the AC 2025-15. This is the Eastern Area Framework Plan rezoning.
Okay, Jess Mays again. I am a senior planner with the Department of Planning, Engineering, and Permits. Do y'all have this list of queues for Eastern area? Okay, perfect. This is Tim's area, but I'm gonna quickly go through these queues today. For Airport Hills, they only have one queue condition. We're recommending removal of that existing queue condition because the lot is currently vacant. So it would just revert back to D3 single family. Moving on to East Birmingham, for 3645 Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard, it was QB2. But when we looked at the property, it's already in an existing industrial area and there's no residential around it, so it doesn't necessitate a buffer. So we were recommending removal of that queue condition for the buffer. 3811 39th Court North was QB1. We're recommending removal of that queue condition due to the property no longer being used as a child care center. It is just a single-family home now, so it would revert back to D3. 937 44th Street North was rezoned to QB1, and we're recommending removal of that queue condition because the lot is currently vacant. So it would just revert to urban neighborhood. For 4340 Vanderbilt Road, it was rezoned to QB2, And we are recommending removal of that second Q condition where it was requesting a buffer adjacent to the residence. This rezoning case was done back in 1996, and there's no longer a residence next to the property. So that Q condition wouldn't be necessary anymore. For 3319 38th Place North, it was rezoned to QR4. It was rezoned to allow a communal living facility, but we already allow those in D4 by special exception anyway. So we would like to request that this one just go back to D4. 4325 Eagle Nook Street was rezoned to QB2. We're recommending removal of that Q condition because the lot is no longer being used as an auto sales lot. When we looked into it, it is just a single-family home, so it would go back to just D3. 3805 36th Avenue North and 3315 Vanderbilt Road were rezoned to QB2. We're recommending removal of those Q conditions because both of those lots are currently vacant, so they would just revert back to C2. 4308 42nd Street North was rezoned to QR5. We are requesting removal of that existing Q condition because the building is currently empty, and it does look like it potentially was an old school, so it would revert back to D3. 3809 43rd Avenue North was rezoned to QB2, and we're requesting the removal of that Q condition because that lot is currently vacant. So it would revert back to C2. 5100 East Lake Boulevard was rezoned to QB2. We're recommending removal of that existing Q condition because whatever it was rezoned for didn't end up being built. And it's actually the site of the ABC State Liquor Warehouse that technically is illegally operating because of the Q condition. So we were just recommending removal of that, and it would change to I-1 Light Industrial, and then the ABC Warehouse would not be legal non-conforming. 4301 Gadsden Street was rezoned to QB2, and we are recommending to remove that Q condition because the building is unoccupied. So it would just revert back to C2. 981 46th Street North was rezoned to QB1, and we're recommending removal of that Q condition because the lot is currently vacant. So it would just revert back to C1. 3310 38th Place North was rezoned to QB1, and we're also recommending removal of it because the lot's currently vacant, so it would revert to C2. In the East Lake community, 6517 First Avenue North was rezoned to QB2, and we're recommending removal of that existing Q condition because our zoning ordinance now requires a landscape buffer anyway, so that Q condition wouldn't be necessary anymore, and it would just be C2. 6600 First Avenue North was rezoned to QB2. We're recommending removal of that Q condition because the Q conditions were very specific for an AutoZone parts store, and that AutoZone has since moved and the building's vacant, so it would just revert back to C2. 7806 First Avenue North was rezoned to QB2, and we're recommending removal of that Q condition because the pre-existing apartments are still on the property. It looks like that case was where an applicant was going to do something with those apartments, maybe demo and build something else, but that never happened, so the same apartments are still on there. So that would just go to mixed-use medium. 8510 Fifth Avenue North was rezoned to QR4A. We're recommending removal of that Q condition because the property is just a single-family home, so it would go to D3. And in the Woodlawn community, for 6400 Georgia Road, we're recommending removal of that Q condition because the lot is vacant, so it would change to just urban neighborhood. And 4901 First Avenue North was rezoned to QM1. we are recommending removal of that because it's also a vacant lot and it would just revert to mixed-use medium. And those are our changes for the eastern area.
Just a comment, again, it would be really helpful for us to have, some sort of map, because zoning is all about, what's around it, really, and making sure that the property is appropriately zoned based on basically its context of where it's located and what's in proximity to it, so,
For eastern area? Do you have all the maps? Do you have all the maps for eastern area?
We have PBS, but since we don't have any ink for the printers, we couldn't print out any maps.
Oh, okay, sorry. Donald was saying we don't have any ink for the map printers, so that's why we don't have large maps.
okay, yeah, so, I guess it would be helpful, if that information is included in the packet when this goes to the council.
Yes, so when this goes to council, we're required by law to have black and white maps that denote the queue conditions on them. So we'll have that with the advertisement, and then we'll also have the large color maps for the audience and y'all.
Okay, good, thank you. So it sounds like a lot of this is sort of, some of it at least is cleaning up some spot zoning, so,
Yeah, a lot of it, especially for eastern area, is someone just rezoned and then they never ended up doing what they wanted to do, so the lot's just sitting there vacant. So, if we clean it up, then the next person can come and actually do something with it instead of having to come back and amend the queue conditions.
yeah. So on a lot of these, you also don't have the current zoning listed, you just have, what it's being recommended to,
I know on that first one for Airport Hills, I don't have the address. We're having to pull the original ordinance to get it. But for most of them, it'll say like 3645 Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard was QB2. So that is what it's currently zoned. And then when we change it, it'll go to whatever is on the left-hand column.
okay, yeah, I see now. So, yeah, let me ask about this. So, let's just take that one as an example. 3645 Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard was qualified business district 2. You're recommending that it be rezoned to
I-1.
I-1. Okay, so was that I-1 part of the framework planning rezoning, and you're simply suggesting that we remove the queue condition that's associated with that property?
Yes, so when we looked at this one, it looks like it was probably, somewhat spot zone, because it is around like an industrial area.
Yeah,
Everything around
I
it is
guess what I'm
industrial.
asking is that, in the public, engagement process, what the proposed rezoning is to go from QB2 to I1. People, who have seen this rezoning plan have seen that. The only thing that you're suggesting is that we additionally remove the queue condition associated with the property.
So no, prior to this, we would have shown this property as QB2. Because that's what it was zoned. So now that we're recommending removal of the queue condition and changing it to I1, that would have to be notated in a new map.
Donald, I'm seeing you indicate something different.
Yes, I was about to say that the zoning changes that we have proposed, that they were publicly shown. What we're doing is just removing the cues, conditions that were tied to those properties. So that, for example, If a property was originally on our map shown as QI1, and we are sort of removing the Q conditions that were tied to that property, then it would just become I1.
Right.
Thank you, Donald. No, this has not been shown to the Eastern Area community as I-1. It would have been shown as QB2, because we looked it over last week and decided to remove the Q conditions.
Okay. Well, that's a significant change. You know, and the public input process has, you know, all of these changes, and there's a significant number of them. You know, the public hasn't had a chance to weigh in on this, so, I mean, how'd we get to the Planning and Zoning Committee, you know, without any recommendation to change these key conditions from, you know, neighborhood associations, ZAC? I mean, that's a good question. Like ZAC, was there a consideration to bring it to ZAC before it came to Planning and Zoning?
I will say, for all of these addresses, like, we didn't have any concerns from the residents. But if we were to reach back out, then we could engage with the Eastern Area community again and just walk them through these changes. And then instead of ZAC, we would probably just take it back to the Planning Commission.
Okay, because, you know, what I'm looking at is you got to change from, R3 to D3 makes sense. QB2 to I1, QB1 to D3, QB1 to urban neighborhood, and so on and so forth. So these are significant changes. Yeah, Council Woods.
Yeah, can you, I guess, talk about, I get removing the Q conditions. Why wouldn't we just let it revert back to its existing zoning versus we're kind of removing the Q and changing the zoning in one swoop?
So for some of them, like QR4A, that zoning district is just completely going away. The most equivalent we would have to that would either be D4 or urban neighborhood. For the 3645 Richard Arrington, everything around it is already zoned M1, light manufacturing, so that's why we just went ahead and changed it to the I1.
So let me reframe the question. Why wouldn't you simply request to remove the Q condition for the proposed rezoning that's been presented to the public up to this point, rather than changing the proposed rezoning? Because that's what I'm hearing, is that the public has been presented with a rezoning plan that is different than what you're asking us to make a recommendation on today.
So y'all could just revert it back to what the original zoning district was with the Q. In that case, everything around it was M1 light manufacturing, so that's why, as a team, we decided to change it. But if y'all wanted to, y'all could just change it from QB2, which is general business, to C2, general commercial, and then that would be the change in name only.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, what I'm saying is that, you know, there's been a very intensive process up to this point to identify, you know, each parcel for potential zoning changes. And we have had that, you know, map before us, and the public engagement has been focused on that. So I don't think, you know, it doesn't seem kosher to me to, even though, you know, there are thousands and thousands of parcels in this, you know, eastern area, you know, still this is a significant change from what's been proposed in the framework rezoning plan. So what I would suggest is that we stick with what the proposed zoning has been up to this point and presented to the public, and simply remove the queue conditions, but not change the proposed zoning. Does that make sense?
It does. The only one where that will be an issue is that QR4A. Yes, so 8510 Fifth Avenue North was QR4A. And QR4A is like a medium density residential district. It allowed for duplexes. We were recommending that it just go back to D3 because everything around it was single family.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. You good?
So
Okay,
what you're
so-
saying is on 4308 42nd Street, or which, is that the proper address that you're wanting to?
8510 Fifth Avenue North. It was DAC 2007-00180. It was rezoned to QR4A, and the Q conditions were uses limited to a single-family dwelling or three-family dwelling triplex. So when we looked at the actual structure, it is just a single-family home. So that's why we were just recommending to remove the Q and just make it D3 single-family.
Right, got you. There's another one in here, though, that's 3805 36th Avenue North and 3515 Vanderbilt Road. No, I'm sorry. 4308 42nd Street North was QR5, and you're recommending that it go to D3.
Yes, so for that one, it looked like it was an old school or like an old church, but it's also surrounded by D3, so that's why we were recommending it go to D3. We're also working on an adaptive reuse ordinance, and we thought this property might be a good opportunity for someone. The adaptive reuse is going to allow you, if something is zoned D3 single family, if you are doing like a community benefit type thing, then you would be able to do that in the space without having to rezone. But with what you're suggesting, since this was QR5, the equivalent to R5 would be D5. So we would just change this to D5, but remove the Q.
What's the most up-to-date ordinance date? The 10/15/2024, or is there one more recent?
The most up-to-date is from February 2025 on the website.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, the ones that are reverting to effectively the same zoning are fairly straightforward, but the ones where you're changing the zoning is just really not the appropriate, process to change the zoning.
So would y'all like us just to go back to the eastern area and show them these changes? Like have another community meeting?
You could do that with all of them, or you could just,
No, to all of them. I would rather us just go back to the eastern area community with all of them than, like reverting back to what they were. Cause like some of them were spot zoned, so like it makes sense to change them. So if we're gonna go back to the community for some of them, we can just take them all back to the community.
If you're willing to do that, then I think that would make me feel more comfortable, you know, going with the proposed zoning that staff is recommending. So
And, would y'all also want us to like go back to the planning commission as well? Or we could go back to the community and then come back to P and Z?
I mean, I think it's just more of like context, and so like we're getting a little bit of, I guess on the fly around. I understand the queue conditions not being needed, but specifically where you're jumping from to a completely different zoning classification, having all the context around why is probably.
Yeah, so Council Woods, you know, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion about whether or not it should go to planning commission, but I would like, you know, the public at large community who's been involved in this process thus far, to be made aware of the proposed changes and to have an opportunity to provide some feedback. Because, for example, you know, with the 4308 42nd Street North, there's a big difference between D5 and D3. And, you know, I would just, you know, want the community's sort of insight on to how they feel about that situation. So,
Yeah, we can commit to going back to Eastern area. But would you want us to go back to planning commission, or y'all are okay if we go back to Eastern area, get their thoughts, have them vote, and then just come back to y'all?
yeah, I mean, to me, that's more of a legal question, you know. The planning commission has reviewed this framework plan, rezoning, and made a recommendation. These changes would significantly alter that, so, you know, based on my non-legal, you know, qualifications, it would seem that, you know, they would need to have the opportunity to at least update their recommendation.
Well, I think that's gonna present probably a little bit of a challenge, because, you know, to notify the entire community,
A public hearing.
of a public hearing, you know, is a significant cost. I wonder if, you know, it's interesting you point out 4308 42nd Street North. This was zone QR5. It did have these queue conditions on it that limit it for the specific use that it used, and I believe it's an educational use. The site is I believe it's an old school. It's in the middle of Inglenook neighborhood, surrounded by single-family houses. So for us to leave it as R5 without the queues, for us, it's kind of challenging, because the school building itself doesn't lend itself to that use. It would have to be demoed, probably, and then it would be a multifamily use in the middle of a single-family neighborhood.
Right.
And so for us, I mean, it's a vacant, nobody's using the site. It's been derelict for some time. I'm sure the building's deteriorating to a certain degree. So for us, it made a lot of sense to bring that one down to D3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting that what you guys are proposing doesn't make
Understood,
sense.
and I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier too, you know, the planning commission made a recommendation. You know, we're kind of furthering that conversation with you, you know,
Sure,
and making some refinements.
sure.
I think, and that's why we present it to you this way, so that we can be above board and in public about what we're doing.
Right.
And so, I mean, I understand your concern at the same time, but I think, you know, I guess what I'm saying is, you know, that we need, if we do go, we can go back to the neighborhood, I would think. We can do that expeditiously, fairly quickly. You know, we were hoping to get this on planning commission by the end of February, or city council end of February to actually adopt it. So, you know, we've been working on this for quite a while, and, you know, I mean, I'm not, you know, saying that we shouldn't delay, but it would cause a delay, and I guess that's understandable. So, now, I wonder too, of these changes that we're showing here from use, are all of these uses that are in the left-hand category not on the map when we submitted to ZAC or Planning Commission?
No, they weren't. It was just showing what it was rezoned to. So like the QR5 would have shown QD5.
Previously?
Yeah.
Right, but so like, for example, I see one here that's going from B1 to I1. Was our original recommendation I1 on that site?
No, it would have been the B1, whatever it is now.
And so that's what I'm thinking, that what you're seeing, I think this may be a little deceptive, that this says B1 to I1, but that's not a change that's being made today. That's a change that was presented to the Planning Commission.
I don't think so.
You don't think so, but he does.
I mean, we went through these last week and made these recommendations,
So obviously, we need to, I think what we need to do is make a better presentation to you about this
Yeah, that would be
in a
great.
subsequent meeting.
Yeah.
With photographs, with a little bit better detail than just this table.
Motion to delay this case to a future meeting, whenever planning staff is.
And okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, where you're changing to the context, like you just kind of gave around, this being old school that you tore down, like the context around every address, because you just give me an address, like, I don't know the history of
Exactly.
why they did that.
When you're looking at this black and white document, it's kind of hard to know why we made this decision aside from just what somebody might say.
Right.
And so you have some photographic evidence, you have a little more detail, and that'll help you see the logic.
Right.
Second, the good counselor's motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that one's been delayed. Next, and apologies to Mr. Monk, who's been waiting. We have item number 5, update on appointments and reappointments. So first up is the Design Review Committee. Yeah.
Hello.
Go ahead.
My name is Lauren Havard. I serve as Urban Design Administrator in Planning, Engineering, and Permits. Let me just take a step back. The Design Review Committee has 11 members. We've had 3 that have resigned recently, so we only have 8. And so we are looking to fill those 3 spots. 2 of the spots are for a registered architect. The third is for a member at large. Over the past couple of months, kind of late summer, early fall, Councilor Abbott had done her due diligence with advertising those positions at meetings. We had received 5 total resumes. The Design Review Committee voted amongst themselves and voted to recommend 3 of those to P&Z to fill those spots. And so I think you guys have that information.
Yes.
You should have all
Yep.
of those resumes. And so we're just looking to move forward because if 2 people, we have to have 6 to have a quorum, so we're running really kind of tight with all of our meetings lately.
Right.
So the Design Review Committee has recommended Brittany Foley and Cindy Coyle as our 2 registered architects. They both have a background in historic preservation, which is awesome and much needed on the committee. And then they had also recommended Gina Malisham as our member at large.
So these are unexpired terms, so with filling, voting on the recommendation, the terms of these new appointments would expire July of 2027. Okay.
That's correct. So they would, one of them will expire in July of 26.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
she would have to be reappointed this summer, along with 2 or 3 other positions. A third expire each year.
Got it. All right. Mr. Monk, would you, so you just want to confirm that the DRC has reviewed these applicants and that is the committee's recommendation?
Yes, Councilor Quinn. First of all, congratulations, Councilman Vasa and Councilor Wood and Councilor Quinn. for being reelected. We're very happy that you are here. One thing that she forgot to say is that under the ordinance, the Design Review Committee itself has the authority to recommend the appointees to you. So we would appreciate you. These candidates were vetted, and we are really excited to have them on board. And keep in mind, we have to have one architect to have a quorum along with with 5 others. So we have to have 6, that includes an architect, and we almost didn't make it last month. We came very close in not having a quorum, and we had like 12 applicants there waiting to be approved. So it's getting tight, and we would really, really love for y'all to try to recommend this to the full council so we can, have we advertised it already? We have advertised it, so that's all done. We just really would like to have this before the council as soon as possible.
Well, I appreciate the committees, reviewing the applicants and making recommendation. That certainly lightens the load for us. So any additional questions?
Thank you for listening to me.
Yep. There are no additional questions. You got a question, Councilor Vasa? I will make a motion to recommend the committee's recommendation to appoint Brittany Foley to replace Willie Oliver, Gina Malisham to replace Doug Hale, and Cindy Coyle to replace Scott Burnett for terms expiring respectively July 30th, 2027 for the first 2 applicants, and July 30th, 2026 for Cindy Coyle. So can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so those DRC will move to, the appointments will move to the full council. So now we have planning commission.
Thank you.
Yep. Who's going to speak on planning commission?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Ward. I serve as principal planner with the city's planning, engineering, and permits department. And just want to make sure that everyone has the current list, city clerk's office that shows the current membership of the Birmingham Planning Commission.
Yep.
Okay. So let's see, we have 2 members that terms have expired. And that's Mr. Stephen Schrader, it's on the first page, as well as on the second page, Ms. Sharon Deep Nelson. And so they have been, excellent commissioners, been attending the meetings. In the Planning Commission bylaws, you have to attend at least 75% of your meetings. And so, they have done so. And so we asked, would it be okay if they can move forward with
Reappointment?
reappointment?
Okay, so they're eligible for reappointment. They've only served 1 term thus far?
Correct.
Okay, got you. And so do you have recommendation or otherwise for the seat vacated by Councilor Gunn?
No, not at the moment. We were also hoping that that you all will also help with advertising to kind of get the word out to the public that we do have a vacant planning commission seat. And the qualifications are you have to be, of course, a City of Birmingham resident, as well as, that person cannot be a City of Birmingham employee, and that person cannot be an elected official.
Okay. All right, so what's before us is potentially the recommendation to reappoint Stephen Schrader for a a term expiring when?
Let's see, on October the 6th of this year.
His current term would expire,
New term.
what would be the new term?
Oh, let's see, his new term will be 6 years from that term. So it's pretty much 6-year intervals. So it'll be October the 6th of 2031. And that's for him as well as
Okay.
Sharon Deep Nelson.
Good Lord,
That's a commitment there.
that is a long sentence. All right. How would we like to proceed, gentlemen?
I move we reappoint Sharon Deep Nelson and Stephen Schrader to a term to expire on October 6, 2031.
Second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so those recommended reappointments will move forward to the full council, and we will start announcing the vacancy on the planning commission.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
All right, I move we take ZAC 2025-16 off the table.
All right, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, so ZAC 2025-16 is back before us for the third time.
Maybe the last. Maybe the last.
Has OCA reached a conclusion?
I think so. I've conferred with staff and everything because they're making sure I understood everything that was going on and looked at some things. And again, as I said before, recommendation of the Planning Commission or the Zoning Advisory Commission, this also kind of applies to the later discussion that y'all had. It's purely advisory. The council makes all the decisions about zoning, and that is a public hearing. Now, we want to have things as clear before we get to the council, obviously, so we can have as, smooth a meeting and hearing as possible and all of that. But I'm just saying that's not necessary when changes are made to go back, in my opinion, to go all the way back to the beginning, because
Gotcha.
that's purely advisory.
Okay.
In this situation, my understanding from staff is that the applicant, who is not the property owner, but has been given authority from the property owner to seek the rezoning for the purpose that he wants, has said he is okay with going with what this committee wants to recommend. I think that can be what you go forward, that you recommend. I talked with staff about making sure that the staff report is clear about what happened at this meeting, and also that our co-chairs, in making your report to the council, report what happened, as far as and why you made the recommendation you did. Again, it's the applicant's application. There will be a public hearing, and things could even change with the council when they hear from the public hearing, or if other requests or recommendations are made. That again triggers re-advertising, but I think that would be a process that you could follow at this time.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, with this case, now, you may want to talk about different things if circumstances are different, but this is, I think, usually what we're gonna have, but.
Gotcha.
All right, I got a motion.
All right. Council
All right.
Woods.
I move we add school trade from the permitted by special exception with conditions category to the allowable uses for this property.
Second.
All right. Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that will move forward to the council with a recommendation for approval for the addition of a trade school and we'll try and get our fellow counselors up to speed on how this is.
Job for the co-chairs.
You may want to make it clear that the committee's recommendation is to reject the removal of all the Q conditions and instead to add an additional, so, just so that it's very clear what you're doing.
Right, and I think that's what Counselor Woods implied, that rather than removal of all the Q conditions,
Right.
we would add a Q condition allowing the use of the trade school.
In your legal opinion, was that motion acceptable?
I didn't hear you say anything. But yes, yes, I think that, I'm just trying to make sure that it's clear on the record what the committee's recommending.
Right.
So,
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. That finally brings us to the end of our agenda, business items. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Adjourn.